Hey guys, in this video we're going to be testing out a USB guitar cable. This is basically a 1/4 inch to USB cable that allows you to connect a guitar to a computer for recording or using amp simulation. In this video, we'll see if this cable actually lives up to its expectations. Before we get started, I want to mention that I'm using an Otraki USB guitar cable, and I've linked to that in the video description down below, but they pretty much all do the same thing. When I bought this cable, there were a few questions I needed to answer. First is whether or not there would be a lot of latency with this cable. Second is if I could actually use it with amp simulation, and third is if it would actually sound decent and be useful for recording or practice. When I opened this cable, I found it came with an instruction manual. All this said to do was connect it over USB and enable it as a microphone for playback on the computer. This basically creates a high latency situation and won't allow us to properly use amp simulation, so I don't want to do that. Instead, we're going to set up this cable with a free digital audio workstation and amp simulation software. For this video, we're going to be using Cakewalk by BandLab with the Overloud amp simulation that's included. If you want Overloud to work in Cakewalk, check out our previous video on cheap guitar amp simulation. The first thing we need to do is open a project in Cakewalk. Then we need to go to the Edit menu and select Preferences. From there, we need to set up ASIO for All as the audio driver. This will give us a very low latency input and output, that way there's no delay when we play the amp simulation. For ASIO for All, I've set up the USB guitar cable as the input and the headphone output on my computer as the output. I've disabled all our audio interfaces that are connected to this computer to replicate what most people using this cable would be working with. For a more detailed look at using ASIO for All, check out our tutorial on how to use it on this channel. Now that the audio devices are set up, we need to get our input working and the input monitoring enabled. First, set the guitar cable as the input on the track. In my case, it's the first ASIO for All input. Once that's set up, you can arm the track for recording. When it's armed, we should see the level indicator for the guitar input. If we monitor the input, we can hear the guitar playing. Here's what that sounded like. Now we can add the Overloud plugin on the track. Here we can select different guitar sounds. I'll start with a clean sound. Now here's a distorted sound. Now that we can see the USB guitar cable is actually working, let's get back to my original question so we know if this is worth it or not. The first question is whether or not latency would be a problem. In my case, since I set it up with the ASIO for All driver, there wasn't any noticeable latency that made it difficult to play, so it passes here. Second, we can definitely use the USB guitar cable with amp simulation if we have it set up in a digital audio workstation, and everything we did in this video is with free software, so it's accessible to anyone. Finally, the sound quality was decent, but it could have been a lot better. One of the major problems I had was the signal clips with the USB cable, so you have to adjust the volume knob on the guitar. This isn't really ideal, and it was happening with my Strat, which is already a fairly low output guitar. The main important thing though is that I would actually recommend one of these cables to someone that just wants to use amp simulation as cheap as possible. It does do exactly what it's supposed to do, but it is a little more complicated to set up than the instructions tell us about. Other than that, for someone that needs a little more control, or also to record a microphone, you could just pick up a Behringer UM2 audio interface for under $50, and that would do the same thing as well. Thanks for checking out this video on using a USB guitar cable. If you're interested in getting one of these USB cables, check out the links in the video description down below. If this video helped you out, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon to get notifications whenever a new video is released. You can also go to our social media links to make sure you're caught up on all our new content as soon as it's released.